believe that TV5 violate its franchise in forging investment or agreement with the ABS-CBN? Meron bang tingin ninyo may mga nababiolate?
Actually po, ang nakikita ko lang po na, well, ano lang po ito, this is very preliminary kahit dahil wala nga po kaming, we don't have a copy of the whole agreement between investment agreement between ABC5 and TV5 and the ABS-CBN. But yun po kasing ABS-CBN has past violations po. So yun po ang aming kailangan tignan. Dapat po ay masettle po muna yun as raised by Congressman Marcoleta earlier po.
Ni-raise po yun ni Congressman Marcoleta. Pero sa inyo po, may na-violate bang TV5 sa franchise niya in forging investment with ABS-CBN? Kasi yung sinasabi niyong past violations, alam niyo po, Mr. Cordova, remiss na kayo dun sa inyong dun sa inyong tungkulin. Kasi 2 years have passed at ang sinasabi ninyo lang naman na violation ay yung pay-per-view. 'Di ba? So 2 taon na po yung nakalipas, wala pa naman kayong decision or resolution on that matter. Di po ba? Malinaw din naman doon sa mga pagdinig doon sa franchise ng ABS-CBN before, yung mga BIR requirements, yung mga pagbabayad ng tax ay naano rin naman. Pero ito po, yung sa sinasabi nating TV5 na franchise. So yun lang po yung tanong ko. Yes or no po? Tingin niyo po ba may na-violate?
Sa TV5 po, preliminarily wala po kami nakikita.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Salamat po, Sir Cordova, sa inyong mga sagot.
You also responded to the question of the Honorable Franz Castro, asking for your opinion whether or not TV5 may have violated this franchise. And in your opinion, which does not bind this committee, Mr. NTC Commissioner, TV5 has not violated. Is that your answer?
Actually, Your Honors, it's a conditional answer because we have not read the full the full investment agreement between the parties. Kasi po what was furnished our office is just a redacted copy, Your Honors.
Because, Mr. Commissioner, easily I can tell you that in Congress, the approval of a franchise is always assumed on 3 bases. One is technical competence, financial competence, and administrative competence. These requirements. If financial competence is not there, you will see that the franchise will not be approved. As a matter of fact, I recall, and maybe you're familiar with Presidential Decree 576-A, that particular presidential decree, Mr. Commissioner, provides that a radio station or no radio station or television network may be given a franchise unless it has sufficient capital. Do you recall that?
Yes, Your Honor. That's a condition, Your Honor. Actually po, sa amin po, in our office, we cannot give an authority if hindi po na-reach yung 70-30 na debt equity ratio, Your Honor. So, a franchisee should have 30% equity bago po namin bigyan ng license.
That is what I am saying. So, again, that is already some semblance of, I would say, weakness or violation on the part of TV5 because in their application for a franchise, the technical, financial, and managerial competence were assumed by Congress based on the evidence and documents that they have submitted. Now we are putting into question the financial capability now, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chair, because of the sizable and substantial acquisition that represents about 35% of the outstanding capital stock of TV5. Can we now assume that financially TV5 is no longer in a position to support its franchise? That is one issue that you should look into, Mr. Commissioner. Considering that you are the regulatory agency that is supposed to be interested in this particular issue. Because based on publicly available documents as cited by the commissioner from the Philippine Competition Commission, I have read a press statement of ABS-CBN, Mr. Commissioner, which says that the proceeds of the subscription in the primary common shares and the convertible note in the total amount of 4 billion pesos will fund the capital expenditures and operating expenses of TV5. This will put TV5 in bad light, and it is an admission that they have now a financial weakness. That is why they are asking for investment. Again, these are, I would say, manifestations of some problems insofar as or doubts insofar as the financial competence of TV5 is concerned. You will note, Mr. Commissioner, that TV5, the parent company of TV5 is MediaQuest. And I think you are in a position to know that MediaQuest is a conglomerate that is owned by PLDT Beneficial Trust Fund. Meaning to say, this trust fund are the ones being utilized. This pension fund is being utilized to acquire media outfits or interest in media outfits. You should look into also into the issue on whether or not pension funds, Mr. Commissioner, can be utilized for other purposes, much less in acquiring assets of existing media outfits. We will have to look into whether or not this funding are coming from Filipino citizens, considering the very strict provisions of law in the acquisition of or in the management and ownership of media outfits. This is something that we will have to look into. Again, I will emphasize that the obligations that you have been citing a while ago are still not complete, because I have cited a lot of violations that have been established during the last hearing, and I think I will be in a position to furnish you some of the details, so that I think it is not too late for you to be able to run after the airing network, considering that these violations have been established.
There is a pending case po sa NTC against ABS-CBN dahil po may violations ang ABS-CBN sa amin noon pong 2020, kung saan po ay pay-per-view without authority from the commission. So yun po ang isang violation na kailangan po muna namin matapos bago po kami makapagbigay ng clearance. Yan po ay isang kaso na pending po sa amin. Yun po, Your Honors. If the Honorable Committee wants, we can also submit a copy of that pending case before our office.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Honorable Marcoleta.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the Honorable Chairman of the NTC if the other violations established during the hearing of the renewal of franchise of ABS-CBN are not considered violations, because he only mentioned the violations in connection with the pay-per-view committed by ABS-CBN for the lack of authority of what we call the conditional access system. Did he not consider also the violations like the lack of permit of the encryptment of the content, and the encryption of the signal is also a violation, and it lasted for several years, not only weeks and days, Mr. Chair. It has no permit for the digital broadcast of its 11 channels, Mr. Chair. Also, ABS-CBN violated the cease and desist order it also sold millions of black boxes throughout the land because without which the encrypted content cannot be viewed by our people. That is the reason why they violated their free-to-air contracts. These violations, Mr. Chair, that's why I'm asking the Honorable Chairman, because he should have included them in all in the context of violations as per the provision of the Public Service Act, which is 200 pesos per day per violation, Mr. Chair. As a matter of fact, I remember telling the NTC chairman if he has already computed all the violations established during the hearing, and I was told initially that the amount of the violation, Mr. Chair, is insignificant. Of course, I beg to disagree with him because I made a computation, a detailed computation of all these detailed violations. And I came up with trillion peso violation, Mr. Chair. So if he's talking only of the pay-per-view violations, I don't think that is complete. May I ask the comment of the NTC Commissioner, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, can I respond po? Yes, Mr. Chairman, yung po mga binanggit na violations po ni Congressman Marcoleta, we will look into it per detail po yun, ano, kasi po we cannot say that it's a violation right now or hindi. Depende po yan dun sa magiging labas po ng aming investigation, kasi po kakaroon po yan ng notice and hearing po sa concerned na corporation.
Mr. Cordoba, sinabi ko naman sa iyo noon na umpisahan mo ng usisain at imbestigahan. Matagal na yun eh. 2020 pa yun. 2 taon ang nakakaraan. Bakit naman hindi mo kasi sinimulan?
Actually,
ang pagkakaalam ko dyan, alam nyo rin na walang, you will admit that there is no permit dun sa encryption ng signal. Wala ring permit dun sa encryption ng mga contents. Hindi ba tama yun, Mr. NTC, Commissioner?
Opo, yun pong case na final sa amin ay tungkol po doon, sir. Yun po yung encryption po.
But motu proprio, you can investigate already because that is the reason why the franchise was not reviewed in the first place. Wala siyang permit for digital broadcast. At ito hindi lang days, hindi weeks, hindi months. It lasted for several years, Mr. Chair. At nakita mo rin yung when they migrated from analog to digital contents. Hindi ba nagkaroon sila ng demonstration, Mr. Commissioner? At you only allowed them for 3 months. But the demonstration continued for years. And these are also violations. So, I'm not still mentioning the violations about the PDRs, which is supposed to be the jurisdiction of the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the tax evasion schemes that they have employed, Mr. Chairs. Dahil nangako pa ang BIR dito. These are all obligations that the NTC should have investigated in the first place. Kahit naman siguro walang magdemanda o magasunto sa inyong opisina, Mr. Chairman, motu proprio kasi kasama kayo nung inimbestigahan natin yan. At ito'y public knowledge. At ang katotohanan nito, yung binabanggit po ninyong memorandum, Mr. Chair, hindi lang national, meron din po silang local obligations. Sa Quezon City lamang po, you will be surprised, Mr. Chair, na yung pong assessment ng kanilang building at saka kanilang machineries and equipment, broadcast equipment. Alam po ba ninyo yung assessment period nila? And 40 years pa po ang basis ng assessment nila eh. 1973 pa po yung iba, ang pinaka-latest 2004. Meaning to say, hindi po na-assess yung mga yung building nila at saka yung improvement sa loob, mga equipment, lahat ng ginagamit nila. In other words, yung basis po ng assessment mali na po eh, because bumibili naman po sila ng makabagong equipment eh. Because of the technology na mabilis pong lumaki ngayon, hindi po napupuntahan ng assessment ng assessor office yung mismong opisina ng ABS-CBN. Kahit na po yung building official, kailangan po siguro patawag natin sila. Hindi sila pinapapasok doon sa mismong planta o istasyon ng ABS-CBN. Kaya hindi po ma-assess yung equipment, yung mga makinarya nila dyan na binibili nila every year. Ang assessment po ay 1973 pa po. Paano natin makukuha ang tamang buwis kapag hindi nila pinapapasok ang assessor sa kanilang opisina? Pati po yung pinakamatas na transmitter. Kailangan po malaman ninyo, Mr. NTC Commissioner. Yung pong transmitter ng ABS-CBN, wala pong building permit yun. Paano po nangyari yan? Ito po lahat obligation eh. Kaya nga po ang sinasabi natin dito, kailangan ba payagan natin siya kagad na makasakay sa ibang prangkisa nang hindi po nase-settle itong napakaraming mga sagutin na ito? At obligation na taong bayan na po ang nakakaalam nung tayo po ay nagkaroon ng malawakang public hearing dito. Hindi po dapat ganun lang. Kailangan pong masettle muna ito. Bakit hindi muna po nila kasi isettle, ayusin, bayaran ang dapat bayaran? Hindi yung makikisakay ka na lang na parang business as usual na lang, Mr. Chair. Ito po yung board ng aking privilege speech. At kung sinasabi po nila, Mr. Chair, na hindi po merger ito, hindi po acquisition, ito po circumvention lamang Mr. Chair. Alam po ba ninyo, yung IRR po ng Republic Act 10667, ito po yung Philippine Competition Commission, under Rule 2, letter K, ang sinasabi po niya sa merger refers to the joining of two or more entities or to form a new entity, including joint ventures. Alam po ninyo, for purposes of assessing whether or not there is competition, pinalawak po ng IRR ng Philippine Competition ang definition ng merger para hindi po tayo maging technical lang, para walang makapag-circumvent ng batas. Ang nagsasabi pa po ng iba, hindi naman po acquisition yan, sabi niya. Kaya hindi na dapat magpaalam sa Philippine Competition. Hindi po totoo yun. Alam po ninyo, Mr. Chair, it is not only acquisition that will entail control over an entity because kahit na po, and nandito po sa section 25 po ng Philippine Competition Commission, sinasabi po rito, Mr. Chair, in determining the control of an entity, the Commission may consider the following. Kung pupunta po tayo sa last sentence nun at idudugtong natin sa letter F, ganito po yung sinasabi. Control exists even when the entity owns one half or less of the voting power of another entity when there exist rights or contracts which confer decisive influence on decisions of the entity. Ang totoo po, doon sa Philippine Competition Commission Act, Mr. Chair, nasa Section 4, dinefine din ang control. Ganon din po, sabi niya, sa letter F, control refers to the ability to substantially influence or direct the action or decision of an entity, whether by contract, agency, or otherwise. Yun po bang pagkakabili ng substantial stocks ng ABS-CBN, ng TV5? Hindi po ba nagbibigay ng substantial control yun sapagkat ayon sa deal nila, Mr. Chair, ang ABS-CBN na po ang gagawa ng content. Wala na pong gagawing content ang TV5. At ang TV5 magbo-broadcast na lang. Bakit po naggaganon? Parang mababiolate po yung Section 10 ng TV5 sapagkat yung rights and privileges na nakuha po dahil nakakuha na siya ng control, hindi po nila ipinagpaalam. Nasa Section 10 po yan, Mr. Chair. At yung word na merge dun sa Section 10 po, it was used in its generic sense, Mr. Chair. Hindi lang mo pinag-uusapan yung technicality ng talagang merger or acquisition. Ang sabi po sa definition na ginawa ng Philippine Commission, kahit na po joint venture, pagka-control ang nangingibabaw, ay kailangan po rin ay makikita rin po natin na control din po yan. At saka kaya ko po sinasabi na kinakailangan makialam ang Philippine Commission, Competition Commission, dahil hindi lamang po dun sa amount ng investment ang pinag-uusapan, Mr. Chair. Bakit po? Dahil po kasi sa Section 14 ng Philippine Competition Commission, kailangan pong tingnan ng PCC yung anti-competitive agreements. Nasa Section 14 po yan. Mandate po niya yan. Kailangan din po niyang makita kung merong abuse of dominant position. Nasa Section 15. Ito pong dalawang sections na to, Mr. Chair, kapag hindi po tiningnan ng Philippine Competition Commission, ito pong dalawang ito have the object or effect of substantially preventing, restricting, or lessening competition. Yun po yung gusto nating tingnan. Yung po bang pagkakaroon ng control will have the effect of preventing, restricting, or even lessening competition. Ito po ay alang-alang sa interest ng consumers, Mr. Chair, kaya hindi po maliit na bagay na akala mo bigla na lang sasakay po sa isang may-ari ng prangkisa, kakalimutan lahat ng obligation, hindi na natin titingnan kung yung pagsanib ng dalawang yun makikita mo yung control at ang yung control magkakaroon na po ng monopolya at ang madidisgrasya rito yung interest ng ating mga consumers. Mr. Chair, I will go to the lawyer of the Securities and Exchange Commission for a short question, if he's still there.
Please proceed, Attorney Padilla of SEC. Attorney Padilla?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
Okay. There are some questions raised to the second round by the Honorable Marcoleta.
Attorney Padilla, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your participation and the quite substantial information, even if you were just basing it on some summarized documents that was furnished you, including the redacted copy of an investment agreement. My question is, would you allow or would you accept formally a redacted copy of the investment agreement submitted to you?
Sir, actually, we were just, Your Honor, we were actually earlier discussing with the director of the Market Securities Regulation Department, which is a department tasked to oversee and regulate publicly listed companies. And we are already in the direction of requiring or directing ABS-CBN to furnish us with the non-redacted copy of the agreement, Your Honor.
Yeah, thank you, because as the sentinel of securities in this country, you're supposed to be guarding against any possible misrepresentation in all the documents being submitted to you, and I hope you will not allow yourselves to be recipients of a redacted copy, which means that they are not trying to give you the entire body of information that you're supposed to get. They are hiding from you some basic and critical information from which you will base your responsibility in replying to the mandate as already asked of you by Congress. So, is that a sign that, or will you think that, given the secrecy or the alleged secrecy that they argue, Congress will not be able to get a copy from them, Attorney Padilla, considering that to them that is a very sacred document that not even the Securities and Exchange Commission should not get the entire unabridged copy?
Your Honor, my personal position is that the government, including from Congress and even the SEC, can compel regulated entities to submit documents, especially if the same is required to perform the respective mandates, Your Honor.
That is why, attorney, these big networks are always emphasizing transparency and accountability. They're talking about pre-press. They're talking about press freedom. But here you are unable to get the kind of copy that you deserve. It is as if that they are mocking the authority of the Securities and Exchange Commission. I hope Congress will be able to give a copy, a complete copy, and if they do that, I assure you we will give you a copy, the same copy that it will furnish the House of Representatives. Thank you very much, Attorney.